It's January in Evergreen, and if you're anything like me, when you think about the outdoors, you're mostly thinking about snow. We sure need it. But winter is actually the best time of year to take action against pine beetles on your property. I'm joined by Mike Goldblatt, a local forester with nearly 50 years of experience caring for evergreen area forests, and Steve Rudolph of the Colorado State Forest Service. We're going to talk about what's driving the pine beetle outbreak in Colorado's Front Range and what homeowners can do right now to protect their trees.
Hi, I'm Steve Rudolph. I'm a wood utilization and marketing specialist with the Colorado State Forest Service. My professional focus is on sustaining and supporting our timber industry, which helps to facilitate active forest management. Prior to my current position, I was a forester in our Woodland Park field office for about 5 years and did forest inventory and analysis out of our Canyon City office for about 3 years prior to that. What we've seen over the past few years throughout this decade, starting to pick up in the early 2020s and really starting to show its effects now, is that the mountain pine beetle outbreak that we're currently facing is really starting to show kind of exponential growth. So the overall number of acres is not anywhere near what we saw in the last outbreak, but just the growth pattern is really a cause for concern. The last outbreak was focused kind of in the north central and northwest part of the state in lodgepole pine. What we're seeing a lot of now is ponderosa pine being affected in the montane areas along the Front Range. Another thing that's concerning about this is just how much of that forest type we have, how much of it is kind of old, overstocked, and is kind of a prime candidate for the mountain pine beetle to continue to spread. Really, one of the things that sets the stage also for mountain pine beetle to run through this dense overstocked forest is essentially a lack of management over the last 100 years or so. So traditionally it would have been fire that created that patchy mosaic across the landscape. But now a lot of the Front Range is wild and urban interface where it's not safe and not going to be responsible to just reintroduce fire. So we have to look at other ways of actively managing our forests and bringing them back into those conditions that are not going to be as hazardous for pests like mountain pine beetle and other disturbances like wildfire. So really when we look at forest conditions up and down the Front Range, mountain pine beetle is really an acute symptom of a more chronic problem with overall forest health and conditions.
Hi, my name's Mike Goldblatt. I've been in the forestry business in the Evergreen area for close to 50 years. I'm currently working with Mountain Family Tree Service to fight this current beetle outbreak. So winter is a great time to get out on your property and check to see if you have live beetle trees. We're talking about the trees that are still green now that would have pitch tubes on them. We're not too worried about brown trees. You want to get out on your property, look for new beetle hits. January, February, March is a great time of year to do it. Tree companies and forestry companies are very available at that time of year, and you're not going to be fighting the clock when the companies may get busy as we get into spring. So in order to get rid of live beetle wood, the gold standard of how to do it is to either run the logs through a chipper or get them hauled off to a tub grinder and pulverize the beetles. And it also is the most expensive option. So as we get into the later part of the season, that really remains the main option because solarization and other techniques are not able to be done at that time. So wintertime is a great time to treat your beetles for a variety of reasons. One specifically is if you buck the wood up into, say, firewood lengths and then split the wood's going to dry out from the sides as well as the ends, and that will kill the beetles. The reason being doing it in the winter is so important is because you have roughly 6 to 7 to 8 months before those beetles mature. So you have all that time for that wood to dry out and hence the beetles to die. If you go into the summer months, that is not an option anymore, and also you're fighting the clock at that time of year. So another technique to kill the beetles is solarization, which involves covering it with 6 mil clear plastic. It's best to put them in the direction of the sun, south facing, and it's great to do it early in the season. What it does is it bakes the beetles and cooks them alive. Now, there are many things to talk about how to do that properly, but the main thing is to do it early in the season to give the logs a chance to heat up and kill the beetles. So let's talk about the life cycle of the mountain pine beetle. An adult mountain pine beetle will emerge from the tree roughly in August or on either side of August. It varies, but generally late summer they will emerge. They'll fly into a nearby tree, and a male and female will fly into the tree, and up to several hundred mating pairs will go into the newly infesting tree. At that point they will lay eggs. The eggs will turn into larvae. The larvae will overwinter in that stage. In late spring into early summer, the larvae will turn into pupa, and those pupa will then turn into adults, which will then emerge in the full 1 year cycle, roughly in that August of that year. So right here we have a tree that is a previous generation of mountain pine beetle. The way we can tell that is because it's completely void of needles. This is probably 2 or 3 years ago. And you can also see that there are actual exit marks on the tree, which is something that a lot of people are not aware of. So let's take a look at, right above my finger is an exit mark. It's the exact width of the pine beetle, because that's how his body burrowed out. It looks like about a 1/16 inch drill bit was drilled into the tree. Not to be confused with woodpecker marks that are throughout, that a lot of people you could possibly confuse with an exit mark. So, the woodpeckers love to peck the beetles out. It's a great food source. This tree is not a danger now. It's potential firewood, but it has no live beetles in. These can be cut at any time and used for firewood or whatever purpose. But let's go look at a tree that we need to be concerned with now in January. Is a great time to address the trees that are still green, but have beetle in them from last summer. So over here we have pitch tubes that are very visible. We have some big ones, we have some smaller pitch tubes, and like this one over here is small, but pitch tubes all up and down the tree. This tree is absolutely 100% going to die from mountain pine beetle. It won't turn brown till roughly, it could turn brown in May, June, July, somewhere in there, or even later in the summer, which is what happened in 2025. Yeah, I'm seeing some sawdust in a bark crevice here on a tree that is still green. So this is a little bit unusual, and I'm going to cut into the bark here in a second. Let's see if we can find a spot where perhaps, I'm kind of doubtful, but perhaps we could find a egg or a larva. And again, it's early in the season, and all I'm seeing is a little tunneling. Beetles have been active in here. There's a tiny bit of blue stain, and maybe if we dug in a little more, we might find some larvae or even egg stage at this point in the calendar year. Okay, so now just next to the previous tree we looked at, we have a tree that looks like it got killed by beetle 2 or 3 years ago, and we're just looking at the blue stain. This actually could be called grayish, brownish blue, but that's the fungus that contributes to the death of the tree. They carry it on their backs and transmit it, and it chokes off the uptake of nutrients and water into the tree, and it contributes to the demise of the tree. So this is an example on a cross-section of a ponderosa pine that shows the blue staining that chokes off the uptake of nutrients to the tree. This is actually the heartwood. It doesn't generally go all the way to the heartwood, but this blue stain fungus contributes to the demise of the tree. So here in a west-facing slope, we have a mixed forest. There's Douglas fir mixed in with ponderosa pine. However, the forest is very crowded, so in this particular area, I would want to thin out. In an ideal world, I would probably want to thin out maybe as much as 60% of the biomass in there, and I would like to leave a good mix of fir and ponderosa. Mostly what I would take out is the undergrowth, the smaller trees. I would leave the bigger, healthier, straighter trees with a single trunk. And that's going to create a forest that is going to be much healthier and much more beetle resistant for the ponderosa pines. So instead of coming out onto your property, say you had 40 acres, and there's no way you're going to spray a few thousand trees at whatever it is, $20 a tree. The better thing to do and more permanent thing to do is to create a healthy forest by thinning out Douglas firs as well as the ponderosas, especially the undergrowth. So now we're at a residence, which treatment of the trees in a situation like this is much different than in a forest. What we have here is some variety of trees. We have some aspen, juniper, Douglas fir, and this ponderosa pine. As far as beetle, this is the only tree we need to worry about protecting against beetle. And there are three real ways to try to prevent beetle attack on a ponderosa in this situation. The first would be to coat the trunk with permethrin or bifenthrin, which prevents the beetles from boring in. A second, somewhat newer science would be to drill holes in the bottom and inject emamectin benzoate, which is a systemic treatment. The tree would be full of the insecticide. And a third treatment is to put pheromone packs called verbenone onto the tree, which can somewhat keep the beetles away. In order of cost, the injections are the most expensive, spraying is the second most, and the pheromone packs are the least expensive.
Okay, we've covered quite a lot today. Before we go, Mike shares 4 common mistakes to avoid when dealing with pine beetles on your property.
Don't wait until your beetle trees are red or gray to deal with them. Don't wait until August or September to deal with your live beetle trees. Don't solarize your trees unless you really know what you're doing and it's not too late in the year. Don't split your wood after wintertime if you want it to kill the beetles.
So the big takeaway here is this. Pine beetles are a natural part of our forests, but on the Front Range, drought, heat, and dense stands have pushed them into outbreak conditions. The good news is that property owners can make a real difference. Removing infested trees before late summer, thinning your forests to create a healthy, well-spaced mix of younger and older trees, and treating high-value trees near your home can all help protect your property and the broader forest around you. If you're not sure where to start, there are great local and state resources available. I've linked them in the video description. Your local fire protection district can help with defensible space and mitigation programs. And on SylvanCycle, you can find local fire mitigation providers, learn more about best practices, or connect with neighbors who have wood to share. If you found this useful, please like and subscribe. We're working to bring you practical, local information that keeps our forests healthy and our communities safer. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.